Circle of Champions by the Indian Debating League, where we will be bringing to you the world's best debaters of 2025 and making you speak to them and their perspectives on this wonderful, extreme intellectual sport. At the Indian Debating League, we believe that Indian debating deserves to be world class and truly accessible to all. We are so excited to announce that we are funding and supporting more teams this year for the 2026 WUDC. Whether it's through international training, sponsorships, or sending more teams just overall to global platforms, our mission is to make debating excellent and a reality for everyone. If you are ready to take your debating to the next level, please enroll for the upcoming Indian Debating League workshops and tournaments. The link will be in the description. Welcome back to the Indian Debating League. My name is Pranay Bhalla. It is a pleasure to be here with two fantastic debaters who have done wonderfully at Worlds this year. To begin with, my name is Pranay Bhalla, your lovely host, and I am going to walk through the two guests that we have here, introduce them to you. First, we have Anas, and second, we have Atifa. Both of them say they have similar debating achievements, and we'll find out in a moment why that is so. Spoiler alert, they've been partnering up for major tournaments basically since the start of their careers, right? Their achievements include coming in the open break at Panama WDC 2025, in the quarterfinals of Krabi ABP 2024, being the octo-finalists at Jakarta Australs 2024, and respectively being the second best ESL speaker for Anas and fifth best ESL speaker for Atifa. Welcome, Atifa and Anas.
Hey,
Hello.
Perfect. I know I got animated in 1 second, but it is just what I do. To begin with, I would love to know, firstly from you guys. I've given so many achievements, but tell me about yourselves. Who are you? Just genuinely. Who are you as a person? If we had to spend time with you, what would you see? So let's start with Anas, perhaps.
um, debating aside, I think I'm someone who's a lot more artistically inclined, literally. So I'd be in my free time probably painting, if not making like very random collages. And if I wasn't studying because like law students are just forced to do that all the time, I'd probably be doing that.
I think I relate very hard with the last sentence, and therefore I like
Yeah,
that answer. Atifa?
it's rough.
I think my non-debate hobbies are a bit less interesting than Anas's. Um, I'm very much a homebody, which means that whenever I'm not being a student or being a debater, I'm much more likely to spend time at home with my family. I'm quite family oriented. On top of that, most of my hobbies are typical of someone of this age. So it's mostly like video games, sleeping, my phone. I really, I don't
I
have the
think
best hobbies.
I think you're already being relatable to the
Yeah,
audience. It's a good thing.
yeah, yeah.
But uh, are there any video games you want to give a shout out to, particularly?
Ooh.
Mm, if you asked me like a year ago, I would have said The Last of Us. But now, like, I can't really look at the game after I found out the director was a Zionist.
It's similar to like
Oof.
hearing a song way too many times and then becoming sick of it. I think
It's
that's
like
what happens to musicians
heartbreaking.
generally. But yeah,
Like, I love the game, great work. Not from the best people, but great work.
in
Oh,
that
I
way.
would shout out God of War and Mario Kart. Those are my, they're up there.
Completely polar opposites, right?
Okay, I think we'll dive right into sort of your journeys. I would love to know particularly how your debating journey began and what inspired you to take it up seriously.
Mm,
Atifa, you
for
wanna?
me, yeah, because I could see you waiting for me to speak first. For me, I started debating quite young, so I started debating when I was 14. But the way that high school debate is, especially in less elite schools, because I was in a boarding school, but I wasn't like in a up there elite government boarding school. The way that they tend to do it is they just kind of pick out whoever can speak English.
Yeah.
And I was already doing public speaking, so they're like, okay, let's grab her for this too. And I think I kind of started to notice that like I didn't feel like I was that good at it in the beginning, but I knew that I was enjoying what I was doing. Like I like to work under pressure. I like to work with teammates. I like to, read up. I like how it's like its own little community. Even back when I was that age, it was still like its own little community. So that was me in high school. And then after high school, I kind of took a break from debating. And as of after I graduated high school, I genuinely believed that my debate career was over. And then I entered IUM, and I only had two friends for my whole first semester. And I was like, I can't keep living like this. And I was always at home, and my mom kept on being like, "Don't you want to do something?" So it's like, okay, I'll look for something to do, and I chose debate. But my biggest goal in joining debate was always like, I'm gonna look for friends. If I can't find friends in this club, I'm gonna join some other club. And I already had like a list in my mind of like what club is next. But I ended up really enjoying debate. I really liked the community in IUM, and even more when I started going to competitions. So yeah, it's just been really, really fulfilling for me. And I think like even to this day, the most fulfilling part of debate is the people that I've met through it. Even though like naturally I'm happy and I'm proud of the achievements that I have, it's really uncomparative in terms of value that the friends that I met through debate bring.
Yeah. I think that resonates with me in one way, which is I also started my debating career personally as a public speaker. How young were you when you started, like as a public speaker?
A public speaker was way younger. I think it was like
Let's see if we
year,
get that the same.
year 4 in Malaysia. That's 10 years old.
Majored at 10 years old. So where did you major?
No, not major. Like
Yeah.
school competitions. That's
Yeah,
as far
I
as you
get
go when you're a
I get
government
that.
school kid in
Yeah.
Malaysia.
No, I think I was damn. Like I haven't majored particularly yet. Like apart from like national tournaments and stuff. That's crazy. But yeah. So yeah, I was also like sort of five in my single digits when I started, and it made no sense to me. I felt like a poetry kid going on stage and saying random rhymes basically. But yeah, does help to begin with in that way, I think.
Yeah.
Anas?
Mine was quite similar to Atifa in that I started in high school. I
Yeah.
started and high school in Malaysia starts at 13. So the reason why I joined the debate club was because my brother,
Yeah.
who is my older brother, had encouraged me to join. And I was just like, sure, I'll try it out. I'm not so sure if I'm really interested in it, but I'll try it out. And when I got there, similar to Atifa, I felt like there was a very strong sense of community. And I think that might be because usually if you're a debater, you're willing to accept certain values and discuss certain topics which perhaps a lot of other people, especially in like conservative countries like Malaysia, are not perhaps willing to do so, and that can kind of like bind you guys together and or make the bond stronger.
Yeah.
And that from that I was able to find like a very nice community. But in addition to that I found like a very strong purpose. I realized like quite young that I really enjoy competing, and debate was the first outlet which really let me do that at such a high level compared to say like I don't know, playing games, which also does help in some way. And after high school I stopped, and similar to Atifa, I also thought like I was done. But when I got into IIU, I was like, let me give this debate thing a shot. And trainings were rough. So after like 4 weeks, I quit because let's just say it was quite discouraging, man. So like some feedback is quite discouraging. I feel like there's ways people give feedback and it's good. I'm not like a tough love kind of guy, or at least if I receive tough love, I have to like actively
Remind yourself.
siphon through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like constantly be like, okay, no, this is just feedback. It's fine. I couldn't do that in my like foundation years, so I just quit. I was like, I'm so good right now. I'm done, and I joined basketball instead. So I played basketball. I got into the university team, which is a big achievement for me. But the problem with that is COVID happened, and basically every league shut down. So I would be training like day and night, but there'd be nothing to prepare for. There's no tournaments, there's no team trainings because, meeting up during COVID is discouraged. And that persisted between like 2020 to like 2022, quite into the middle of 2022. And I was like dying to compete. I was just dying to compete. And like some random day, my friend who's now in Muting, unfortunately, we lost her, but she was like, you want to try join IIUM's debate selections? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's give it a shot, right? And at the selections, Mubarak was there, which is like the first time I've seen Mubarak, like my life. But if you're in IIU debates or even proximate to it, which by virtue of being in the uni, you'd be proximate to it, you hear about Mubarak. And Mubarak ranked me highest in that round during selection. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can debate. Like, I'm not insane. So that really encouraged me to like pick it up again. And I've been debating since, like non-stop, like most unhealthy debaters, non-stop since then.
I think that's fabulous. There's so many things in both of your journeys which I quite like and I enjoy hearing. Of course, starting with Atifa's, starting real early, looking at debate, liking it, leaving it, coming back to it, having that relationship which is quite similar to Anas's, but also the fact of her finding friends. And I would love to know, Atifa as well, what other societies did you have in mind, just so we know which ones did not get you, which ones did debate trump over the others.
Mine was there's this traditional Malay like music club called
I
Gamelan.
didn't had no idea that you
And it's
tried that.
all traditional, and I've never done it before, but since high school, because my high school had a pretty strong Gamelan club, so I was like, I want to try that,
Yeah.
but I never did.
Well, I think for all good reasons, in some sense, right? In all good reasons. But hopefully, we get a chance for that as well. And for Anas, I think the best part about hearing this story for me was the concept of Mubarak existing in the first place. The idea that
Mhm.
a person who's been there, for a long time, probably has made the rounds, has made a name for themselves, is then sort of looking at you and saying, this guy is good in the league. I think that was the push you needed in some sense to look at yourself and think, okay, I'm not only competitive, but I can compete. And I think that there's a major difference in those two beliefs, right? And that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
perhaps we've gone so far as well. I think that's wonderful. Uh, Now, do you think like the Malaysian circuit? Because I've heard so much about community from both of you. What do you think of the Malaysian circuit? Like, do you all feel it's good, it's bad? Do you think there are certain parts which are good, certain parts which are bad, things which can be improved upon, things like that? And do you also feel this is uh, do you also feel the community like feeling is more at the high school level than at the university level, or vice versa? Like, what's it like? Anybody can take this first, honestly.
I think at a community level, the Malaysian circuit is doing relatively decently, if not well. And I think this, of course, has to be compared to like other circuits, if not just other communities in general. So this could be like any
Absolutely.
club.
Yeah, any
Yeah,
club.
like communities in general are kind of cliquish, and
Yeah.
I don't think the Malaysian circuit is exempted from that. There's always going to be like, oh, the good debaters, and then the quote unquote subpar debaters, and then people who kind of feel like they don't fit in. I feel like the circuit does suffer from that to some level, but I don't think it suffers to any horribly noticeable degree. Of course, it does happen, but for the most part, people are very welcoming, as most debate communities are characterized as. They're very welcoming, they're very understanding, they're very open. And I think that's one of the benefits here in Malaysia. And we're quite a like multiracial country. We have
Yeah.
the like Malays, Chinese, and Indians. And in spite of that, our biggest differences are probably just like institutional beef, at most. It's never on like your race. It'll never be about that, in fact. And for the most part, the community is really close, and the ability to connect with one another becomes very easy outside of like those smaller things. I think perhaps one thing which is bad is our ability to come together to overcome certain problems within the circuit. I think it's become quite clear that when, say, something happens in the circuit, institutions generally make their own statements and come to say their own conclusions on certain things as opposed to corroborate and work together towards, say, overcoming something, which is like something other circuits have done relatively well. Like Korea's circuit has a very strong council. I think the Malaysian council can be a lot stronger.
Is there
Yeah.
any specific instance that you have in mind?
Um, none, none that I can, none that I can necessarily detail,
Yeah.
because yeah, none that I can necessarily detail. So a lot in the past, like a lot that I've heard of in the past. Yes,
Understood.
like two,
That's
three,
a good
and like
PR
longer than like 4
response as
years.
well, to be fair. There's a good PR trained response as well. But
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I see the point that you're trying to make, and it makes
Mhm.
sense to it. Especially the segregation based on sort of competencies and
Yeah.
institutional belief. I get that as well. Atifa, is there anything you want to add to that?
I feel like if I was to compare the community in high school and university, I'm gonna be like honest. I feel like it was a lot friendlier in high school, and
Mm.
but the reason is like a bit dumb. The reason is just because when you're in a boarding school and
Yeah.
you can't have smartphones and you can't talk to anyone outside, going to competitions and having friends from different schools is like cool. So nothing else matters. So because of that, like you're truly friends, and because like I joined debate for friends, I think comparatively I'm a bit more sensitive to how friendly the circuit is. And although for the most part it's friendly, I think what I
Mhm.
constantly fear is like I feel like there's still that image that you are a debater from your institution more than you are my friend. And
Yeah.
that's the image of me which is prioritized, which I don't enjoy because like these are people that I genuinely enjoy spending time with,
Yeah.
and I see them as like genuine friends, and I worry that I'm just like having fun by myself and like it's all
Yeah.
in my
I see
mind.
that. So you want to sort of be looked at as Atifa more than Atifa the debater in some sense, and you
Yeah,
are part
yeah.
of the community, right?
Yeah.
And you
So for
felt
me,
that
like,
more in high school than in university. But again,
yeah.
like
So
perhaps as you mentioned, it might be because you've joined with that, with your value sort of hierarchy starting with friendship and community, right? While
mm,
others might have just be looking at it as an activity. But
Mhm.
I see what you're trying to say over there as well. So you were part of a boarding school, is it?
yeah.
Understood. Is that like normal? Is that like sort of the way Malaysia works in particular? Is that different from the stereotypes?
I would like not everybody goes to boarding school, but it's normal to go to boarding school.
No, I guess
Yeah.
it's
Like if
normal,
I
but like
was
is it
to
50-50 in some sense, like in terms of the ratio of how people go?
Mhm.
Okay,
um
understood.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say it's less because like
Yeah. Maybe.
at least the type of boarding school that I went to, there's like application processes every year. There's a bunch of them, but one school is like 125 people accepted per year compared to the number of people leaving primary. So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is a bit of competition. I'd say the majority go to, daily
Day
schools.
scholars, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So in India as well, there are a couple of like boarding schools that are really, really famous, and people it's the same thing, right? People really want to get in, and it's a hard process to get
Yeah.
in. But just generally, I think there are a lot more day scholars in India than boarding schoolers. So like my assumption when I hear any like when you say high school debate, it's okay. You wake up, you go to school, you debate, you come back home, maybe you debate again during the day out of your own fun, and that's it. But the fact that you're in the boarding school makes you sort of like more sort of in an environment where you're always around the people you debate with sometimes. I think that's also
Yeah.
there, perhaps. But that
The
might,
the debate culture in my high school, the way that we train for competitions, is when a competition is coming up, they take us out of class. And we live in
same.
the school. So
Yeah,
from the morning, after lunch, all the way until 11 p.m., I'm just there training
yeah,
for a week.
yeah.
And
But
we
it's
do
so
this
much
for like
fun. Like even in
60
hindsight, as you
episodes.
look at it, I think it's the best feeling ever to think that you walk.
Yeah. I
Even the
like.
walk out of class is like a walk of superiority. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I think
my maths teacher hated
yeah.
me because her subject was the only one that I was like flunking in. So she hated that I was never in class. And like I can't even
Uh,
fault her. Like the fat, like you should hate me.
That makes sense.
yeah.
Now, okay, I would love to know this as well because it just popped in my mind. Do you all have like a favorite debate topic as well, or like a type of motion? Just generally, like I personally really like principled debates. So if you give me any debate which is like values oriented, or sort of, let's say, take a conservative value, take a liberal value, like sort of make them clash. Those kind of debates I really, really like, even though they are not grounded in so much in like current affairs. While you can bring them as facts and points within your arguments, I think yeah, I just enjoy them for some reason. I think that's like sort of philosophical debates are like at the higher end for me. Do you all have like a favorite?
Before
I
that,
sorry?
but wait, before that, you studied. You're studying law. Did
Yeah.
you study about that case where like these three sailors were stranded and two of them ate one dude?
No, I
Have you
haven't.
studied that yet?
That
Okay,
sounds
like
horrific.
those.
What is it?
It's horrific. You'll probably learn it. When will you learn this? Oh my gosh, maybe criminal law. Like there was a motion which is like this house believes that in moments where you're stranded on like in the middle of nowhere, that it's principally justified to eat the person. I think, and I felt like, oh, that was a tremendous debate. Like, solid topic, and it's
Definitely.
really just on principle there.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that.
Atifa.
It becomes like far more specific in terms of like how the principle is applied over there, definitely, which makes it even like
Yeah.
even the word choices makes it like very different in terms of how you sort of go around. Yes, Atifa.
I like post-colonialism and religion, and that's also
That's a
the
good
same thing that I like in my degree. So
That
these
makes
are just
sense.
things that I like, full
It's
stop.
all
Like,
aligned. It's all aligned. You know,
yeah.
it makes sense. It makes sense. Is there a reason for like those topics in specific?
I think because post-colonial theory is one of my favorite classes I've taken so far. Which is surprising to me because I always thought like, oh, I hate history, I despise history. But then like the most history-heavy class is the one that I end up liking. I never knew that there were so many ways to go at it for a very long time because I only took this class last year. For a very long time, the only thing I knew about post-colonialism, first of all, I didn't know the difference between post-colonialism and neo-colonialism until a couple months ago. But on top of that, I really only knew like the Edward Said, Other Rising, and I didn't even know it like in detail. And then I start to learn about like how colonialism psychologically changes an individual, how that trickles down and is inherited, and how like even though people feel like colonialism is done, the after effects are still here. And those are things that like there's just so many ways to go about it, and like all of them are right because you learn all these other subjects and like, oh, maybe you agree more with this. Like, no, I agree with all of it. Like, I hate them. You know what I'm talking about. And then for religion, it's because of like, I think maybe it's like I like the challenge of having to navigate how religion interacts with politics while
Mm.
also being religious.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, especially when you grow up in a country like Malaysia, growing up religious, growing up with everyone around you agreeing with this one particular religion as like, you know, absolutely correct, you don't find yourself wondering if it can be used in the wrong manner. And I want to like preface that I think Islam is great, but I do believe that it can be misused. I think the study of religion
Yeah.
and politics, things like the history of fundamentalism for Christianity, Islam, and more recently like Hinduism,
Yeah.
those things, I like the challenge it gives to me,
Yeah.
but also like how it. I like those subjects that make you feel better about yourself, that make you feel like a better person and help you develop your moral compass.
I think it's very interesting. So with colonialism and every aspect of that, right? There's an intergenerational element to your style of debating or the kind of things you like. And I also feel so this is the kind of debater I envision you to be in that case. Like I think when you get a motion, you like being the word choices being disgustingly educated on the matter, right? I think that you've studied them so much now that you like knowing how these different elements interact with each other
Mm.
and watching them happen in 3 dimension rather than just 2 dimension, right? I think that
Yeah.
sounds very interesting. And even when it comes to religion, I think there was a point where you mentioned, people can interpret it differently, right? And I prefaced as well, right? I do believe that if let's say a supernatural entity exists, right? They're the only person who can interpret or say something which is understood. Like us human beings in our naivety, we are obviously smaller than that figure, right? So we can make mistakes, and I think understanding that and seeing like interpreting right any topic uh, makes us smarter as debaters as well, because debating can become slightly semantic, like one word choice changing here and there, things changing
Yeah.
here and there, everything changes, right? So I think that's very interesting. I myself love religious motions as well, so I think that's something. Okay, I think that makes sense to me. I'd love to know. I think I heard from Anas right now about he's a law student. He's brought up like a case and to speak about his motion. I know that all like both of you love. I would imagine your degrees as well. So how do you really balance your personal, academic, and your debating life exactly?
Anas can go first.
That's a great question. I th- the way I personally manage my debating career while trying to excel in law is by creating and or forming different ways to train, which are as convenient as I possibly can.
Yeah,
So, for instance, like you'll never really have 2 hours a day, which is completely free for you to like prep, give a speech, and scrutinize yourself.
yeah,
So instead, I'd perhaps just watch a 20-minute, a video, maybe a 7-minute speech, and I'd break that down. And I do that maybe 2-3 times a day across different parts of my day, because I'll never really have that single block which is free. So perhaps in the morning I'll watch OG, and then later in the day I'll watch OO. This is insane, by the way, but it's to me, I really enjoy that. And I then later at night review both of those things. Usually I have it completely typed out, so I can just read exactly what I've typed out and scrutinize it there. If not, just a 20-minute speech. I remember there was once, and I don't recommend this, but I was interning and there was no work. There was absolutely no work. So what I did was I went to the break room and I prepped a case for CG closing an ABP 2022 quarterfinal round. And I just prepped the speech, I debated, and then I went back to my desk. And there was still no work, which is good. But I feel like that's like an example of what training looks like. It's not necessarily let's sit down, let's get a bunch of people, let's run a whole training. That's really convenient. That's really inconvenient. That's like best case scenario. You have to be able to find little ways you can
Nooks and
like
crannies you can put in that prep. Yeah.
yeah, yep.
Atifa?
Um, One thing that me and Anna spoke about when we were in Panama was how we think that we've kind of figured out our debate learning styles. And I would say, like, in academics, I've also done the same. I figured out my learning style. And for me, like, in the beginning, videos were great. But what I found helping myself a lot more is, one, doing the readings for my class, because it turns out they're really useful in debate. But two, it was like these kind of rabbit holes that I go down every now and then, like whenever I'm distracted. And it's so nerdy. It's literally like I'm supposed to be in bed. Let's read about the history of the transatlantic slave trade
Yeah.
with multiple Wikipedia links going down each name that I see. I need to know everything. Tonight I'm gonna become a master of this subject.
Yeah.
And I do that all the time. And a lot of my knowledge comes from that. The biggest flaw is that I will only read things that I'm interested in. And that's why in Panama I realized that I've never studied finance before. But for everything else, it helps a lot. In balancing academics, I think I'm a very academic oriented person, and this is also something that me and Anna spoke about when we were in Panama, about how like I will never ever give up my academics for debate. Like I cannot do it to myself. Like if I lose a debate, okay, sucks. But if I get like a bad GPA, I won't be here tomorrow. I can't take it. Like they got me. The Asian mindset got me. So in terms of academics, every single class, I'm incredibly focused. I'm not the type to go to class and then not focus. I take notes, I refer back to my notes. I don't like being lost in class. I ask a lot of questions. And like the way that I study in class and the way that I study in debate training is very similar. Like I will not allow myself to go and not get the benefits that whoever is teaching planned for me. If I don't understand something, I will ask. I will make sure that I've mastered whatever they want me to master on that day. And like even in like feedback after debates, I think me and Anas are very similar in the sense that we kind of internalize that feedback quite rapidly. And you know, it's all the result of like this really internal need to constantly be better that kind of forces you to do better and be better.
I think that's fantastic, and that reminded me I have to study, honestly. Like that little monologue
tough.
on studying. Hey, I'm worried about my dissertation during Zoom, you know. So I think that's one way to make me start working, you know. That's wonderful. I love that, and I think both of you all give that competitive vibe about in different ways. You know, if that makes sense. Like it's the same letter in different fonts. You know, and I think that's very interesting to me. But I'd love to know for that very reason, like, how do you feel you've impacted each other as debaters? Now that you've debated so many tournaments together.
Never thought about that. Atifa, I took the last question first. You can rock it.
I knew you would do that. I think Anas makes me work harder actually because I'm pretty lazy, and I noticed that like when I'm with different teammates, I don't work as hard. So a lot of my debate training is literally what Anas tells me to do and what he wants me to work on. But also maybe I'm a bit scared. Maybe I'm scared he's gonna get mad at me for not working hard enough. So I work harder. So yeah, Anas makes me a better debater.
You said this man makes you fear. him. You know?
Yeah, right. The TLDR.
in in Panama,
I
like
Yeah,
swear
so
when
I'm
we
I,
were
nice.
I, I
waiting
feel
for breaks.
threatened by the
I swear I'm
existence of
nice.
my debate partner. So yeah, I debate better. Thank you. You know, like that's
No, in Panama, when we were waiting for the breaks and the number was getting larger and larger and larger, and there was like a risk, I was like, he's gonna kill me tonight. I'm done for.
Oh, I swear I'm nice. I didn't do that.
Yeah, but okay, on a serious note, I think that what I enjoy about being Anas's teammate is two things. One is that I think that we're able to like express our dissatisfaction and actually like resolve it. It doesn't affect our relationship. Like we argue, like we really, really
Yeah, yeah,
fight. But then
yeah.
like tomorrow it's like whatever. Like we've solved that. It's over. We're done. Like I like the honesty. I like the communication, and that's just in general the type of friendships that I want to have. People who are willing to confront, willing to discuss, and willing to get over it once it's resolved properly. But secondly, I think that I enjoy is that, like me and Anas, like if there's a debate that I know a lot about, and if Anas just has to sit there for 10 minutes and I explain completely new concepts to him, he will get it. And the same goes for me. I feel like whenever like the finance round in Panama, I just sat there and I just listened to him, and we did it.
Yo, but
So
you really took it though. Like
I
that
really
was
did.
quick. Yeah, that was quick.
So I think because we've been teammates for so long, there really is like
yeah,
we click as teammates, and I think
that's
that
good.
we understand the type of arguments that we like to hear from each other, the type of arguments and case that we want as a whole. I think communication, both inside and outside of debates, has been great. Yeah, it's like I couldn't ask for better, and I'm quite disappointed that he's retiring.
Yes,
You are
sir.
retiring. There's an announcement as well.
Yes, I'm retiring. I'm done. I'm done. I think what Atifa does really well is, funny enough, kind of like the opposite of what you said, Atifa. It's like you read. And I don't know if it's my maybe intimidating demeanor which makes you read. That like competitively agitates me. So that I read. So when I know you're reading, I'll read. And Atifa will send these long texts of different things she had broken down. And I'll be like, oh, Atifa's reading. I can't let her outread me. So then I read. And it just cycles. So but the difference between like say you and someone else is no one in the club probably comes to as close to you when it comes to being competitive and well read, especially. Like you're really, really well read compared to like some of the people in the club. And that's no tea and no shade. Atifa's just like really, really well read. So that's like that just that throws me in the cycle. And I just like continue reading. And
Yeah,
like yeah, it's just a really long vicious cycle. But it
yeah,
pushes me to get better. Yeah, and it's
definitely.
fulfilling. So I
I
enjoy
think
it.
I think it makes
I
sense.
think we're
Like
both describing unhealthy things, but
no, I
maybe,
think
maybe.
hey, like so I was gonna mention one rule of mine when it comes to whether it's debating or anything else because I find myself to be quite competitive as well. Uh, by with your last point, I brought to my second point as well. Number one, extreme people get extreme results. So
Mm,
hey, it's fine. And number two, what you consume is what you produce. So at the same point of time, I think this reading definitely did really well for you both of you, right? I think
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
fantastic. I think I'd love to know, do you believe Malaysian universities, especially yours, provide enough resources and support for you to excel internationally? And if not, what could change, especially when you sort of compare it with some of the Western countries that have been doing well in WUDC, especially in the open category EFL for so long, right? They've had this global dominance just generally. Yeah.
I'll keep it brief. I think in terms of funding, our institution in particular does a lot. They always try their best to cover basically everything. So that goes from major fees all the way through transportation between each of the areas that we need to go to, as well as just some general money for food. So for the most part, if you make it to first, second, and or third team, sometimes our institution covers it. That I'm not speaking on behalf of all the Malaysian institutions. Unfortunately, there is a lack of funding in some institutions, which makes debating a bit inaccessible for them. But for the vast majority of our institution, it's fine. I think as it pertains to things which we could improve on as a whole, as a Malaysian circuit, and perhaps IIU in general, is just the materials we have access to in terms of like the trainers. I think we should have a lot more diverse trainers. Like we understand that a strong senior network is good, and that's a great thing. That's what had helped me and Atifa get as far as we have. But a lot of other institutions are going as far as hiring WUDC, CAs, DCAs for a lot of money too. So we kind of get why our institution doesn't. But perhaps that would be a great way to improve. And I know a lot of institutions, especially from say like these unis that do really well in WU, do pour that kind of money into their debaters. Of course, that's extreme, and you get extreme results for it.
Definitely.
Atifa?
Atifa?
I think we suffer from the general like our currency is just not as that strong as the currency
Yeah.
that we're being charged in. That's why we need de-dollarization, and that's just not something the university can do.
Yeah.
Yep. Dang
So
it.
it's like like one team is like the price of someone's monthly wage for these
Yeah.
majors. So it's going to be a natural suffer, and it's the type of thing that like obviously I would love for every single major for us from Malaysia to be able to send as many teams as we did to Vietnam, but it's just not realistic. And that's why I feel like it's not really the responsibility of the university, but I think what I would appreciate from the international debate circuit is just like that sort of consideration when it comes to voting for bids and stuff like that, like ensuring that these things are accessible, particularly to Asia and countries
Mhm.
where our currency just we
It's
can
weak.
afford what you guys can afford. Yeah,
Straight
and
up.
that's not our fault. Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
richest people are still like middle class if
Of
they went to
course.
the US.
Yeah.
I bought a hot chocolate at Noobs. I'm sure you've been to a Noobs at this point.
Yeah.
Have you? Pr- Pranay, have
Go
you
on.
been to a Noobs?
I don't think
Uh,
so.
oh my gosh, you need to go to Noobs. It's like £5. In Malaysia,
Oh, yeah.
that would have been a whole day of eating. My
Yeah,
one
it
hot
would.
chocolate in UK,
No,
which is
I think
insane.
I want to make this point as well because I've been speaking to my family about this. It's crazy to come here. It's crazy.
It's expensive. It is so
Yeah.
expensive.
So, you know what?
Oh
I'm gonna take a
gosh.
moment away from this interview as well and just say I relate very heavily for a couple of reasons. Number one, as you mentioned, hot chocolates, things of that nature being £5. In India, that's 500 rupees. That 500 rupees, there are people who live daily wage on that, like with
Yeah.
Yeah,
rent included. That's crazy,
yeah.
right?
That's
So,
wow. That's
yeah.
wild. Yeah. Like Panama, we had fish tacos, which were insanely good. $12. I can do 2 days in Malaysia eating.
$12, that's about
The
50 something. I can do
60,
more.
60. Yeah, yeah, you can do more.
So how much is one
That's
dollar in
crazy.
Malaysia exactly?
So one
About
US
five
dollar is
five
about,
ringgit.
yeah.
About 5 ringgit, a bit less than 5 ringgit.
500, is it?
No,
Five.
5 ringgit exact.
So five. Yeah, just
Five.
five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think again that's far better than India. We are like 85.
Yeah.
We
And
have to remember the real enemy, man. It's a shared struggle. Like, there's no need to compare between the two of us.
He's waging war here.
yeah, that's yeah.
Uh, honestly, I get it though. Uh, I think the next question that I have for you is, okay, what are the challenges that you've like sort of faced when you're facing opponents in WDC? Look at my sort of lingo going towards opponents after that sentence, right? Yeah, your sort of opposition in debates. Is there a key challenge you faced in these international tournaments, especially whether that's a Vietnam, whether that's a Panama?
My
Am I
internet's
cutting off?
not great right now. I didn't. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. Of course, I can.
Yeah.
Are there
Sorry.
any key challenges you faced when you were like facing opposition from any countries, whether that's in Panama or in Vietnam, that you did not expect?
Oh,
Personally, it's
I.
yeah.
Okay,
You can
sorry,
go to
Anas.
no rocket.
Um, this isn't in Panama though. This is what I faced in Oxbridge,
Yeah.
which was, and it's a bit funny, but you know how debate, the goal is to be intuitive, right? So you often refer to status quo is like this. It was the realization that status quo is vastly different between countries. And the day that I realized it, the emotion was this house believes that the feminist movement um, should depoliticize sexual preferences. So like, no, should repoliticize sexual preferences. So like, if you like to beat up your girlfriend in bed, then maybe you're a bad person politically. and we were government, and I remember we were arguing like, oh, you know, it's bad, people don't understand consent, blah blah blah. You know, it's these people who are trying to like, the debate is about people who are experimenting with BDSM but don't necessarily understand BDSM. And naturally, I'm referring to where I'm from, like in Malaysia, because like sex is such a taboo, they don't talk about it. So when people want to experiment, they don't know how to go about it. Opposition, which is like a British team, say that like, oh, BDSM has all of these rules. So like people who engage in BDSM, they're going to like have, they're gonna, consent matters. And then like we responded, we were like, that's a niche. That's such a small group of people. And they were like, no, it's not. And they just bought it. I was like, what the hell? It's a niche where I come from.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, if you're in someone else's land, you should play by their rules.
No, I think I myself relate to what you've said over here, not the BDSM part, but more along the lines of the debating culture being different, and therefore people's sort of the kind of generalizations they make are heavily different. So, for example, for them, now I know this being over here, they drink beer or alcohol as if it's water, right?
Mm.
And I have never taken a sip of alcohol in my life. Not that Indians do this. Indians don't, but that's a personal choice, right? But at the same time, in India as well, they don't drink as much as people from here, like by no means. But there's a sort of culture over here that if you don't take sort of a beer with a pal, you might be looked at as somebody who's not being as friendly. Which therefore you have to clarify that, hey, it's not that I'm not friends with you, but this is just how I am, right? And that extra bit of clarification, for example, also shows that culture difference, which can definitely seep through when it comes to even adjudicators debating or judging this debate and thinking, hey, of course, X team is better than Y team because their generalizations were right? So I definitely see that. Anas?
I think if Atifa gives a minus, I'll give a plus, which I also didn't really think about until you asked this question, because it's really easy to just note the bad things about other circuits, or rather like being exposed to other judges from other circuits, is a lot of these judges are a lot better than perhaps what you'd get in our region. And what I mean by that is their comprehension of what needs to happen in debate, what they need to pick up, what isn't credited. Like, just because you weigh in closing doesn't mean you automatically win. There has to be legitimate substantives there and a legitimate reason why that contribution is more important, along with tracking as well, which is something which me and Atifa suffer a lot in the local circuits here, is that we'd say something and they tell us the reason why we lost is because we didn't say, and verbatim, if not verbatim, sometimes they will say exactly what we literally just said, if not credit it to another team. And that is really hard to reconcile when you're so used to your own circuit. So the challenge is often coming out of Malaysia, reorientating all of the bad norms that you've picked up to all of the real norms that debating should be applying, which these other judges who have made their IA applications and got accepted into worlds can do. And that's something which to me is a reason why I really like WUDC especially. It's because you get the best judges. Like me and Atifa got the best feedback in worlds. It's because they really know their stuff. It's not like your regional edges who are good debaters, but by no means are, if like DCA level for regional majors, and that's something which we often struggle with, because we're like, oh, in Malaysia, that's something these bad judges wouldn't have considered. That's crazy. Now we have to reconsider it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I see that as well. I think it all comes down to, as you mentioned, comprehension, but at the same point of time, observation. Like the kind of things they're picking up on, the fact that they can get you word by word, I
Yeah.
think that makes a difference. It shows the amount of commitment. For example, you are committed to your motion, being competitive there, and they're also competing with, in their minds, I believe,
Yeah.
you as a debater, if they were thinking like a debater, at the same time as an adjudicator, how can they sort of cut every mark they possibly can and give you feedback? Like that's the motivation. It's not just to simply judge a debate and decide who's the winner, but like
Yeah.
far more than that. If you see it,
Yeah,
the
but very
commitment.
competitively doing it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I see that. Uh, okay, I think I'd love to ask a couple more questions. I know that I'm taking a bit more time than I should be, but would definitely
Don't
love to
worry.
know. Yeah. Uh, Perhaps I would love to ask how your preparation strategy, like you get the topic right now, right? What are you doing for a debate? Like if that were to happen right now, you have 15 minutes to prepare. What's your to do thing? So I can give an example. There are some people who would like. I personally, my first task is to break down the key terms of a topic and see how I can like find angles to it to propose my motion and then think of constructives depending on which side I am. So if I know like okay, I'm the fourth speaker, by then these points will only be taken and credited to somebody else in some ways. What are the new angles I can bring? What are some metaphors I can use? Things of that nature, right? So that's my perspective. And at the same point of time, my favorite cricketer, Sachin Tendulkar from India, he has this process that when he's asked to go to bat, he always has to wear his sort of it's called a pad, a knee pad to as a protection, right? On his left leg first. So that's a superstition he has while going in. So give me both of them. Do you all have superstitions as well? Do you all have the preparation strategies?
Wow.
Both, yeah, both in one. Yeah.
Tifa, you can go.
I have a superstition actually that's like not. I shouldn't practice it because like religiously it's not good, and my sister keeps telling me to stop. But every competition, I will wear jewelry that my mother gave me. Like I will max out on the things that my mom has given me. Like if she gave me a watch, if she gave me a ring, if she gave me a bracelet, if this particular
I
pair of
had
socks
no
from her,
idea.
like I all of them. And I've been doing this for ages. I've been doing this since before Anas was my teammate. Like I will max out on my mom's stuff at every competition. That's one. But two, like in terms of like actually prepping, I'm quite rigid, um, much to most other debaters dismay, and I'm glad that Anas is okay with it. But I'm very like, no, we have to talk about this right now. And the first thing we have to talk about is like framing. So like where the debate takes place, why it exists, things like that. And then we can move on to like writing the arguments. And I remember Anas has gotten mad at me before, like, why is your handwriting so nice on your paper? Stop it. And that's why I started to speed up. That's why I started to use like acronyms and like illustration. Now I only write ill.
I'm like, bro, it's writing an essay. Like sometimes you write like whole on essays. It was so clean. Oh my gosh. Even to words, it's so clean.
Actually in Panama was when I started to be like, okay, fine, let's mix it up. And now we
I
start
know you got
with-
your little yeah.
But like even then you can still see the first of all, like all my papers, they all look the same. For every single debate since I was 14. They all look the same. I've used the exact same format. But then like even when I was like, okay, let's do illustrations first, especially when there's like a time crunch. So sometimes doing illustrations first can help. I still put on the second piece of paper. So that in the end the paper will still be the same as the format that I want. And like I feel like I can't even name the steps by now. It's just like muscle memory. Anas has probably also memorized my process by now. But it's always going to be illustrations, framing and then illustrations, or not illustrations and then framing, and then we move into arguments. But arguments, actually, we do it quite independently. Usually, once I have the title, I'm like, okay, Anas, you can think about what you want to think about.
Yeah.
And if I need help, then I'll like, Anas, you know, otherwise, then I'll do it myself.
Anas?
I think in terms of like pre-game rituals, first is really just to, and for lack of a better term, like get in the zone. The way I do that is like there's multiple different ways I do that. Like usually, and the most common one is just like listening to music. So I'd be that person in the hall who's like listening to music and just like wandering, just like walking around, because it really helps me. If not distract myself, then just focus on what I need to do in the moment. And that usually starts all the way in the hotel. Like if we're at Panama, it's like it's in the hotel. Once I get to the bus, then when we reach there, and Atifa will randomly be like, "Oh, hey, hi," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, right, we're still here." Second, which is kind of funny, is pre-breaks. I like to try my best to not post about the tournament, which is hard for me because I really like posting and documenting in general. And some motions are fun. Sometimes, like the setup of the tournament looks really nice, so I'd like to post it, but I refrain from doing so. And I think the reason why I was thinking about this later on is because I'm afraid people reply me and say like good luck, and that puts a lot of pressure on me. So at like Worlds, I posted nothing. If I didn't post food, it was maybe the side of the street because there's some random graffiti which is pretty. But aside from that, it's just nothing. because I don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, you guys are at Panama. Good luck. The Malaysian circuit is behind you. Like, I don't need that. It gets to me sometimes, and that's something I refrain from doing. Like, as it pertains to just matter, I think it's a really funny process because it's always a balance between framing where it is and, to me, identifying the problem. It's always like chicken and the egg. It's like, do we identify the problem first and start framing after? Or do we identify the framing first and go to the problem after? And the only reason why I'm sort of reluctant to do framing pre-problem is because you can often frame a lot of unnecessary things. So you'd be like, oh, this debate has to take place here, there. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't relate to the problem, that would make for a disjointed case. Of course, on the alternative, if you're just doing the problem first and cherry picking contexts, that can come off kind of cheap because it's like you're very in debate line at that point. Yes, it's always reconciling between the two.
I think that makes sense, and it's quite similar to, like, in some way. I love listening to music just generally. I don't see myself listen to music on days of competition personally, apart from when I wake up. So like when I'm getting changed, I have like a particular playlist since I was basically
Nice.
11 or 12, right?
Yeah, you have a specific playlist, right?
Yeah, 100, and it's private on Spotify, and it's literally called just Win full stop. That's it. Like there's
Nice.
nothing said. You know,
Nice.
that's the one I pulled up basically,
Nice.
and I love it. And I think as the playlist goes on, it's like a 3-hour playlist basically. Although I listen to like only certain parts of it now. As it goes on, it gets more and more aggressive till
Yeah.
I press pause basically, and then
Yeah,
I'm
we're
like,
same.
now we're here, right?
Yeah. We're same. It builds up, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it starts really calm. Yes. I like
I
that.
start
We're
with
same.
feeling good, like Feeling Good by Michael Bublé. Like I think there's like
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's just classy music, like James Bond vibes as I'm getting ready, and then all hell breaks loose, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, I still get that. That's same. Like, you really curate the playlist, right?
Whoa,
Yeah.
I think I spend more time prepping the playlist than I do now.
No, same. Like, I go as far as to each major I have a different playlist. And it
Yeah,
also helps because when I go back and want to reminisce on perhaps, like, say, Australs, I'll listen to that set of songs, and like clockwork, all the memories will come back really easily. So
yeah,
it's nice.
lovely. Okay, I know we're getting late, so I'm going to ask the last question now. Okay, I'll go with a 2-part question. It's going to be really short though. First, if you could sum up your entire debating journey in one word, what would it be? And your entire Panama experience in one song, which song would it be? Okay. So I know it's a big decision. You can take your moment, right? I can give a slight drum roll as well. I don't know whether it will be heard. Whenever you guys are ready. It might mean a lot to Anna since he likes songs, so he's gonna go through that playlist.
Yeah,
now.
I'm looking at my Spotify.
Yeah.
Oh no, my answer is pretty simple. My word is great. I've had a great time. Indeed.
That's good, honestly.
Yeah.
My
No, that's
song-
solid. That's so solid.
Yeah.
Oh no.
My song
This
is
is
the
the
song that
most.
my entire debate club knows that I love, which is Life is a
Insane.
Highway.
Oh
Life
no,
is the
this is
highway.
the worst.
Who's
Life
the
is a
artist?
Highway.
Oh no.
I don't even know.
It-
I just listened to the song.
Okay,
It's the
pause.
song
Rascal
from
Flatts.
Cars. It's the song from
no, Rascal
Cars.
Flatts. Yeah,
Is
the
it?
Cars soundtrack.
Is it
Life
Cars?
is a highway.
Oh,
Yeah, that song.
that's so dope. I did not expect to get a song recommendation from Cars today, but that's so cool.
No,
I
that
like
song
it.
is so good. Like when I remembered the story behind me remembering that song is good was that they repaved the road in front of my house, and it reminded me of the movie. So I watched the movie, and then I was like, oh, this song exists. And then I told my younger sister, and we started listening to it. And the specific phrase she said to me is that all music should sound like this. And I was like, you're right. It should. I have not found a song that sounds as good as this.
I'm going to listen to it right after. Also, slight secret about me. Whenever I ask such questions, generally I'm just building like a songs list slash movie recommendations list slash anything list that I really want to watch. So
Gonna watch Cars.
I'm going to watch Cars
Cars?
and I'm going to listen to Life is a Highway. Yes, Anas. Do you have something ready for us?
I do. For this
Okay.
song, it's a Daniel Caesar song. It's called Toronto 2014.
Toronto 20.
That's
Yeah.
yes, solid song. Very chill song. It's a bittersweet kind of sounding song. It means a lot to me because Um, I've been listening to it since ABP, and on that first day of ABP, me and Atifa, we bombed day one, and I was like, okay, we're not gonna break, and it's fine.
I disagree with that. I think we
Yeah,
did normal.
yeah,
I
yeah.
genuinely think we did normal on the first
I
day,
felt
but
like we
Anas think
bombed
we
it.
bombed it.
Yeah, so I just listened to that the whole night as opposed to hang out with them in Thailand, which is Thailand's amazing, by the way. And until Worlds, I just kept up that song. So it's about like a 6 month period. And as for a singular word to describe this debate journey, I'd say it's just um hmm, hmm.
He's debating in his mind right now. We're seeing a
He
Yeah.
just
master.
needs it to be
I'm thinking between
articulate.
two words. I'm thinking between two words. Um I'll say I'll say bittersweet. I like that. Like an
You're
I
just a
oxymoron.
poet
just
earlier.
checked. I think
Yeah.
I think you said Toronto 2014 is also a bittersweet song,
Yes,
so
yes.
I can
So
see
it,
how
it
that sort of
fits. It fits. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see how
I
that
feel like
goes through.
uh-huh.
I
Wonderful.
feel
I
like
think
what I'm noticing between me and Anas is that I'm way more detached. Like I don't have
Yeah.
these playlists or anything. I feel like I don't like to recognize that I'm in a high pressure situation.
yeah, I see.
Mm.
So like when
And
I'm done, I'm just like, yeah, it's done.
Anas's process also makes him want to slightly detach, like not be too close to the subject when you like listen to songs. You're trying to, you mentioned not get distracted but focus. And I think what you're trying to say is you find yourself being here if this is debating, and you try to just go back
Hmm.
and see the larger picture, right? In those moments,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
nothing changes, but it's just like this flow state where you're sort of in the right distance from the subject matter as well.
Yeah, me and Atifat Loki talked about this. Like we were in the taxi on the way back from breaks. We were like, we will go through our whole day in autopilot. Like
Yeah,
you'll finish the day and you're like, we've done 3 rounds, you're completely exhausted, but you're like, oh, like I, I didn't even know the day started. Because
Yeah.
we're just so detached. And I try to detach and enter into the zone so much to the extent where I'm just performing and all that you see is just a performance.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even think that I tried to detach. I feel like
It just happens.
yeah, I just feel like it just happens. Like I think because we're in high pressure situations so much that I've developed
Yeah.
the ability to treat it like another day.
I think it's also your sort of gravitation to the activity, right? Because Atifa, you're like your again value hierarchy begins with the friendship component, and then the academic competition sort of seeps in to debate, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think for Anas, he went from basketball competitions not having an outlet to really portray that, and now it's just like if not debating where, right? Where to go,
Yeah.
what happens, you don't really know.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
makes sense. And it's a really it's good to see this because it's really complementary to each other, I believe. If there's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
one more of the other, I think it becomes slightly problematic perhaps. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's
Could
wonderful.
be
Thank you
toxic.
so much, guys, for a wonderful interview. I know I've taken too much of your time, but I promise you, the people watching this will really, really love it. And I also know that they'll learn something. I have learned something today, right? They'll be inspired. They'll want to understand how to become an academic weapon. At the same point of time, a person who documents, plays basketball, is listening to songs and is doing well in debates. I think both of those parts are really important. And thank you so much for this interview. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.